Hello everyone, uh, welcome you all. This is B. Uday Kumar, Assistant Professor of Physics working in Dr. B.R.R. Government College, Jadcherla. So as you already know, we are dealing the chapter electrostatics, and in today's video lesson we will continue the topics, remaining topics of this chapter. And anyway, in today's video lesson we will try to determine the electric field intensity due to an infinite non-conducting sheet of charge by using Gauss law. And before moving on to that, we will revise what we have done in our last video class very quickly. And in our last video class we tried to understand the graphical representation of electric field intensity due to different system of charges. We will just see the diagrams. We just revise it quickly within minutes of time, and after that we try to determine the electric field intensity due to an infinite non-conducting sheet of charge by using Gauss theorem. So that is what we are going to do today. So let us move on. Okay, so anyway, these are the topics that we discussed in our last video lesson. You just have a look at the graph. So this is the graphical representation. I am just revising it because these are very important for competitive examination. So please try to remember the variation of E with respect to R for different systems. So anyway, this is a graphical representation of E due to a point charge. So for a point charge, the electric field variation is represented with this curve. So that means we can see that from formula, for a point charge E is inversely proportional to R square, and hence the graph which shows the variation of E with respect to R is given by this. That's it. I am not explaining everything how we got it, but have a look at that. And this is the graphical representation of E due to a charged spherical conductor. This is the charged spherical conductor, and we determine the electric field intensity at a point P outside, on and inside the surface. And the formulas of electric field intensities were found to be this one. At a point P inside the conductor, E was 0, on the conductor E was Q by 4 pi epsilon 0 capital R square, and outside it E was Q by 4 pi epsilon 0 small r square, right? So here in this system, capital R is constant, so please remember, and small r is a variable. If point P changes outside it, small r changes, and hence outside the conductor E was inversely proportional to R square, but inside the conductor E was 0, and on the conductor E was constant, and which was given by Q by 4 pi epsilon 0 capital R square. And the variation of E with respect to R was given by this diagram. So inside the conductor, so this region shows the point P lying inside the conductor up to small r is equal to capital R. The electric field, you know that electric field will be 0, and outside the conductor electric field intensity varies with respect to R by this curve. That means we know that E is inversely proportional to R square, so that is what you are getting here. Okay, anyway, this is about variation of E with respect to R for charged spherical conductor. Whereas in case of charged sphere, inside the sphere, in this case E will not be 0, rather it will be directly proportional to R, and hence you get a straight line inside the sphere which shows that E is linearly. That means if R increases, E also increases inside the charged sphere. So that you have to understand it. And the remaining part is same on the surface of the sphere and outside the surface of the sphere. Whatever the graph or values that we got in case of in case of a spherical conductor, the same formulas you get here also, like you can see here. On the surface of the conductor, it was Q by 4 pi epsilon 0 capital R square. Even here on the surface of the sphere, you will have q by 4 pi epsilon 0 capital R square, which is constant. But whereas outside this sphere E is inversely proportional to R square. So these two formulas are same. Okay, but this formula it was 0 for conductor, but whereas in this case here E is not 0, rather it is directly proportional to R. So that is represented with a straight line here. Okay, fine. So let us move on to our next one. This one. This is the graphical representation of E due to a line charge. So this was the line charge, and we determined E at a point P lying on lying at a distance of R, and it was found to be E is equal to lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 R, and hence from this we got E is inversely proportional to R. So that means the variation of E with respect to R is given mathematically by this formula and graphically by this graph. Okay. And similarly, we also try to determine the electric field intensity due to a charged cylindrical conductor. It's a conductor. That means, as usual, as you know, the electric field intensity inside it will be 0. And on the surface of the cylinder, it was found to be lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 capital R, which is a constant. And whereas this one, if you see, this is the electric field intensity at a point P lying outside the cylinder, which is found to be E inversely proportional to R. So combine all these situations in a single graph, you get this one. So E is 0 at a point P inside the cylinder. This region belongs to the case of inside the cylinder. Okay, so that means from R is equal to 0 to R is equal to capital R is the place in which the point P lies inside the cylinder. Okay, and whereas on the surface of the cylinder, its value is lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 capital R, as you already know, and outside the cylinder E is inversely proportional to R, so that is mentioned here. And the next one, this is graphical representation of E due to a charged cylinder. You know that it's a charged cylinder, and we determined E at a point P on, out and inside the cylinder, and those formulas were given by this equation. As usual in our previous case, that is charged cylindrical conductor. In case of charged cylindrical conductor, on the surface and outside the surface were represented by these formulas, but inside the cylinder, in our earlier case it was 0, but here E is directly proportional to R. So that is the only difference between charged cylindrical conductor and charged cylinder. Okay, so that you check it out. Since inside the cylinder E is directly proportional to R, we get a straight line here, and the remaining things are same as it is. Okay, fine, that's it. These are the graphical representations of electric field intensity due to different systems of charges. Anyway, these 6 topics are very, very important for board examinations, whereas that means in terms of derivation, and for competitive examination point of view, these graphs are most likely to be asked to you, right? So anyway, have a keen look at those graphs and formulas. You try to remember them. So now let us move on to our next topic, which is very, very important to you for your board examinations, and that is E due to an infinite non-conducting sheet of charge. So by using Gauss theorem, now we try to determine or find the electric field intensity due to an infinite non-conducting sheet of charge. So what is this non-conducting sheet of charge? So that you try to understand. That you can understand with the help of this image that you can see here. So you can see here, right? There is a sheet. There is a sheet here. This is a sheet. Okay. And let us assume that its dimensions are infinite. Okay, its length is infinite, its breadth is infinite, and so on. Okay, this is called as a sheet, right? So if the charge is uniformly distributed on this sheet, so that we call it as a sheet of charge. Is that clear? And remember, its thickness is very, very small. That means almost you can neglect its thickness here, infinitesimal. Okay, so its thickness is very, very small that you can neglect it. So in terms of length and breadth, its dimensions are infinite, but whereas in terms of thickness, it's almost negligible. So that we call it as a sheet now. Okay, infinite sheet. Okay, so if the charge is uniformly distributed on it, okay, so then we call it as an infinite sheet of charge, an infinite sheet of charge. So what is the meaning of this non-conducting sheet of charge? So non-conducting sheet of charge is nothing but whatever the material on which the charge is distributed uniformly is made of non-conductor, that's all. So that becomes a non-conducting sheet of charge. Remember, this one is very important, okay, because in our next topic we try to determine the electric field intensity due to infinite conducting sheet of charge also, okay, and hence you need to differentiate between what is non-conducting and conducting. Once you understand it, both the derivations will be very easy. So it's a non-conducting sheet of charge. That means the entire charge that is given to this sheet is uniformly distributed, and moreover whatever the charge that is distributed on this system is made of non-conducting material. Okay, so this we call it as non-conducting sheet of charge, and its dimensions are taken infinite. That means length and breadth are taken infinite, and its thickness is assumed to be almost negligible. Okay, that's it. So this is an infinite non-conducting sheet of charge. Okay, so remember, the charge is assumed to be uniformly distributed on it. Okay, so anyway, this is this side view, right? If you see it from the side, the infinite non-conducting sheet of charge looks like this. Okay, whereas if you see it from front, okay, it looks like this. This is non-conducting sheet of charge, and the non-conducting sheet of charge is also you can assume as if the entire sheet itself is made of charge. You can say that, right? Non-conducting sheet of charge is nothing but the entire sheet is made of charge. That you can understand, that you can imagine. So if the entire sheet, if it is made of charge, it looks like a line. Okay, if you see it from front, so please check it out. So this is the front view. So for convenience, you can forget about the sheet itself. Whatever the sheet that is there here, it is made of charge. You can say that it is made of charge. So that is nothing but the non-conducting sheet of charge. Okay, so anyway, so the non-conducting sheet of charge, when it is looked from side, it looks like this, and if you see that non-conducting sheet of charge from the front, it looks like this. Okay, so anyway, so now it is it looks like a line, but not a line. Okay, please check it out. It looks like a line charge, but it is not a line charge. It is a sheet of charge. Okay, but you are seeing it from the front. So now, since the charge that is distributed on it is taken as positive by me, the electric lines of force will be like this, right? They will be directed outwards here. Outward means the charge that is present on this sheet is taken by positive, and hence you already know that for positive charges, the electric lines of forces are directed outwards, right? In this case, since the electric lines of forces are directed outwards, the electric lines of forces will be traveling only towards right and left, so that you try to get it, because it is made of a sheet of charge. If there is a point charge, all the electric lines of forces will be directed in all the directions, right? In all the directions. But in this case, the electric lines of forces will be directed only towards right and left, because it's a sheet, right? So everywhere positive is there. The lines of forces will be directed towards you, and if the charge that is present on it, because of that, the electric lines of forces will be directed towards me. So like this, in this case, the lines of forces will be directed towards right and left only, not towards me or you, like that, right? So that means not in all the directions. The electric lines of forces will be only directed in two directions. one is towards left and another one is towards right. That's it. Okay, so that you have to get it. So anyway, so this is the direction of electric lines of forces for this sheet of charge that you get. Okay, so now since it is a sheet of charge and since all the charge that is given to it is uniformly distributed on it, now what happens, that means this system of charge becomes an example of surface charge distribution. You know what is surface charge distribution, right? If the charge is distributed on its surface, then that case becomes the example of surface charge distribution, and hence those systems can be understood with the help of surface charge density, which is denoted by sigma. So you know all this, right? So there are different types of distributions. You already know linear, surface and volume. This case becomes the case of surface charge distribution, and hence we can study the derivation, or we can write the electric field intensity of this system in terms of sigma, which is surface charge density. So what is surface charge density? You already know that it is charge per unit area. It is charge per unit area. But the problem here is that it's an infinite sheet of charge, right? So that means the amount of charge that is present on this sheet and the area of this sheet is completely infinite. We don't know the exact values that are given to this sheet of charge in terms of Q and the area, right? And anyway, even then we can find the value of sigma here. To find the value of sigma, what we do, we choose a small area element on this sheet. Let us assume that this is the area element that I have chosen. Okay, so if the area of the element that I have chosen here on that sheet is taken by A or ds, choice is yours, you can take in any notation that you want. So if the area that is that means the area of the element that I have chosen on this sheet, if it is denoted by A or ds, and if the charge that is present on this element, if I take it as Q, then I can find sigma in terms of Q. And how to determine sigma? You already know the derivation. Sigma is nothing but the the charge per unit area. You already know this one, right? And hence by the definition of charge per unit area, I can write sigma as the charge that is present on this area, which I have taken it as Q, and its area, which is capital A. So if I just divide Q with A, I get sigma, that's it. So now I can write Q as sigma into A. If I take that area element by ds, I get Q as sigma into ds. So this is the formula that I can write for Q in terms of sigma. Okay, where to write the value of Q that is present on a particular region, I have chosen a small area element here. So this formula we will use it in derivation, right? Anyway, now coming to the derivation part, now let us assume that this is this is infinite and non-conducting sheet of charge, and you know by using Gauss theorem I can determine the electric field intensity of this sheet. And how do we determine it? You already know certain steps have to be followed, and the first step is that you have to choose the point P where you want to find the electric field intensity. So this is the point P where I want to find the electric field intensity of this system, and its distance is taken by small r. So that means point P is present at a distance of small r from the system of charge here. What is the system of charge here? It is a non-conducting sheet of charge. So that you try to understand. Okay, and the next one is that what you have to do, you have to construct a Gaussian surface in such a way that it passes through point P. Okay, so you have to construct a symmetrical closed surface around this charged body which has to pass through the point P. So that you have to that is our next step here. So now in this case the symmetrical Gaussian surface will be a cylinder, okay, which is horizontal now. Okay, in our earlier topics in the case of line charge and in the case of charged cylinder or cylindrical conductor, the Gaussian surface was a cylinder. Even in this case, the Gaussian surface will be a cylinder, but it is that means it is taken horizontally so that it becomes symmetrical. So that you have to understand here. Okay, why it is cylindrical, that you have to imagine it. Remember, if it is a line, the Gaussian surface will be a vertical cylinder, but it is not a line here, rather it is a sheet of charge. It's a sheet of charge. Okay, if the cylinder is taken vertically, what happens? It will not be symmetrical. It will not be symmetrical. Remember, the curved surface will be like this. It will not be symmetrical. But if you take the cylinder horizontally, what happens? It becomes symmetrical now. The nature will be symmetrical. So please, that you try to get it, because it's a sheet of charge, not in line. It completely depends on your imagination. You have to imagine it. It's a sheet of charge. If the cylinder is vertical, what happens? The curved surface will be like this. So curved surface is like this means, if you see that cylinder from the system of charge, it will not be symmetrical. Whereas if the cylinder is taken horizontally, it that means satisfies the condition of symmetrical Gaussian surface. Okay. Anyway, so this is the Gaussian surface that we have constructed in such a way that it passes through point P. And to make it symmetrical, what you have to do is that, so remember, cylinder, that means whatever the cylinder that we have drawn here, it is an imaginary cylinder. Actually it doesn't exist, but it has to pass through point P and it has to be symmetrical. That is what I said. So to make it symmetrical, the height of the cylinder is chosen in such a way that, to make it symmetrical, the height of the cylinder is chosen in such a way that its total height is 2r. Remember, because point P was present at a distance of r, and similarly it also should be, that means the other half of the cylinder also should be at a distance of r. That you have to understand to make it symmetrical. If the height of the cylinder is not 2r and something else, it will not be a symmetrical Gaussian surface. Remember, our condition is to construct a Gaussian surface which is symmetrical to make it convenient, and for that reason we have constructed a Gaussian cylinder here whose height is 2r. Whose height is 2r, twice r. So twice r means if point P is present here at a distance of r, the same point P can be present on the other side of the cylinder whose distance is again r. Now this symmetrical condition of the Gaussian surface is satisfied here. Okay, so that you have to get it. And let us move on to our next one. So now next thing is that you have to choose a small area element at point P. So this is our next point. Okay, so since the cylinder that has been constructed here is horizontally, you can assume that the area here at point P itself is small. You can assume, right? So let us assume, and remember, the cylinder has three phases here. One is curved surface, another one is the circle that is present on right side. That means this is another phase that the cylinder has. This is the another phase that the cylinder has. That means two phases that are present on right side and left side, and another one is curved surface. That means the cylinder has in overall three phases here, three surfaces, three kinds of surfaces. One is curved surface, another one is a circular surface on right side and circular surface on left side. So these are the three phases that this cylinder has. So since the cylinder is taken horizontally here, you can assume that the circular phase that is present on this right and left can be assumed to be very small, and hence for that reason there is no need to construct a small area element here at point P, which is ds. Rather, instead of that, you can choose the entire circular surface area itself as ds. So that you try to get it here. So that means you can assume that this area itself is ds here, which can be assumed to be very small. Okay, that's it. So I have chosen the small area element at point P. So even since it is taken as ds, the area of this circular face also becomes ds now. And the next one, this one. Now you have to draw the directions of E and ds at point P. You already know that the electric lines of forces are directed outwards, that means towards right and left. So that means here in this region the electric field intensity will be directed outwards, and ds also is circular surfaces like this, right? So that means the area vector ds also will be directed outwards, which is shown with this arrow now. And similarly, you also know that the electric lines of forces also will be directed from outwards, from that means which is towards left, and hence at this point P, remember this point P is, I have taken point P here actually, but the same point P will be present even at the left side, and even at left side of P, the electric field and the ds vectors will be directed outwards. Okay, I hope it is clear. And the next one, now what you have to do, you have to write the mathematical equation of the electric flux which is passing through ds and integrate it. You automatically get the total electric flux. Once you get the total electric flux, apply the formula of Gauss theorem, and we were doing the same almost from the last 6 topics, so that you get it. Anyway, this is d phi, which is the flux that is passing through ds, and you know that since it is a positive charge, the electric lines of forces will be directed like this. So now what you have to do, you have to find the total electric flux. To find the total electric flux, you have to choose the small area element and write the flux that is passing through it, and here the chosen small area element is ds, and the flux passing through this ds is written as d phi is equal to E dot ds. Anyway, I am erasing this, and let us move on to our next slide. Okay, so this is the slide, this is the diagram that we got for this sheet of charge, and as I already told you, this cylinder has 3 faces now, 3 surfaces. One is S1. What is S1 here? S1 is the circular surface that is present on right side, and S2 is the curved surface of the cylinder, which is like this, as that means it will be circular actually, but it is circular in the sense cylindrical, but in the figure it looks like a rectangle. Okay, but it is not a rectangle, but rather it is curved surface that you try to get it. And it has another surface which is S3, which is present on the left side of the sheet of the charge. So that means this entire cylinder has 3 surfaces now. Okay, anyway, you know that the flux that is passing through ds is written as d phi is equal to E dot ds, and to find the total flux you have to integrate this. If I integrate this, I get total flux which is written as phi e. So now phi e, I can write it as integral d phi e, but d phi e is known to us by E dot ds. Okay, so if I that means this is the total electric flux that is coming out of this entire cylinder. Okay, so now this entire cylinder is distributed in 3 parts. So that means the flux, this is the flux that is coming out of surface S1, this is plus that this is this flux that is coming out of surface S2, and plus this is the flux that is coming out of surface S3. So if you add all these 3 fluxes, you get the total flux, so that you try to get it. So I am trying to find the total electric flux by splitting the surfaces into 3 parts now, since this cylinder has 3 surfaces. Anyway, now I can write this equation as phi e is equal to this formula. So I can write it as, since E dot ds is known to you, that E dot ds is nothing but E ds cos theta, so write it down. And here also you get the formula of E dot ds as E ds cos theta, and here also you get E dot ds as E ds cos theta, but where this theta is the angle between the electric field intensity and the surface area or surface vector at that point. So now coming to this one, E ds cos theta, here theta is the angle between E and ds at S1. So where do we have S1 here? This is the S1 region which we have now. This is the case of S1. So at S1, the angle between E and ds is theta, which is 0, right? Similarly, this is S3, even at S3, this is S3. Even at S3, the angle between E and ds is nothing but 0. But whereas here, at this region, the surface, that means if the small area element that I choose here is this one, and its direction will be like this. So the ds is directed upwards, but at this point you know that electric field intensity will be directed towards right. So that means in this region at S2 the angle between E and ds will be 90 degrees. So substitute those values here. If I do that, in case of S1 you know that the angle between E and ds is 0, and hence in place of theta you get 0 here. And similarly in case of S2 the angle between E and ds is 90 degrees, and substitute that. And similarly in case of S3 the angle between E and ds is 0 again, so substitute that one. So once you substitute that you get this equation. Okay, so that I can write it as, you know that cos 0 is 1 and cos 90 is 0 and cos 0 is 1 again. So those are written over here, so please check it out. You get this one becomes integral S1 EDS only, because cos 0 becomes 1, but here cos 90 is 0, that is substituted, cos 0 is 1, that is also substituted. So if you solve this one, what you get, since E is constant you take it out, you just take it out, E comes out, and integral ds you can write it as you already know, this entire area is taken by ds, right? So that means the total surface area at S1 becomes EDS. Okay, similarly since it is 0, this entire term becomes 0. Okay, this becomes 0, that means it will vanish, it won't exist now, and this value you get as EDS again. If you add these two you get twice EDS. So this is the total electric flux that is coming out of this that is coming out of this Gaussian cylinder that we have constructed here. But you know that from Gauss law the total electric flux is nothing but 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by it, which is Q. So the charge that is enclosed by this Gaussian cylinder here is taken by Q. If I take it as Q, Gauss law can be written like this. So from equation 2 and 3, these two are equal now, right? These two are equal. Equation 2 and 3, they are equal, and from that what do you get? You get from 2 and 3 you get 2 EDS is equal to Q by epsilon 0, and if you send 2 and ds to right hand side you get E is equal to Q by 2 epsilon 0 ds. But you already know that I can write, remember this is the circle that I have drawn in case of earlier side, you already know that. So that means the charge that is enclosed by the Gaussian surface is taken here by Q, that is what I said, right? And that Q is the charge that is present inside the surface, okay, inside this Gaussian surface. So that Gaussian surface will have an amount of charge Q inside it, and that Q is written over here. So this is that means front view of the sheet that we are seeing. This is front view, right, that we are seeing, and this is what side view. If I see this entire diagram from side, it looks like this. From front there is a cylinder here, okay, that I am looking that I can see a cylinder, but whereas from side you won't see any cylinder, you only see a circle. You only see a circle. What is that circle? The front the circular surface that is present on it. So this is the circular surface that you see. So now if you assume that the area of this is, you already know that I have taken its entire area as ds, so that means this circular surface area is given by ds, and if you assume that the charge that is present inside this cylinder on the sheet is taken by Q, then I can write sigma as, you already know that I can write sigma as Q by ds. You already know this formula. Okay, so substitute that formula here. That means in place of Q, if I substitute sigma ds, what do you get? This ds and ds gets cancelled, you get sigma by 2 epsilon 0. So this is the electric field intensity due to a non-conducting infinite sheet of charge. Okay, so this one is very important. So it may be asked like a short answer question, and with the combination of conducting sheet of charge, it may be asked like an essay question. So but you need to be understand, the only thing that is a little confusing here is this region, okay, this formula. But I hope it is clear because I already discussed it, how you have written it. Okay, anyway, this one is clearly right. This is equation 2, which is giving a formula for total electric flux, and this is from Gauss law, equation 3, and from 2 and 3 I can write 2E ds as Q by epsilon 0. Is that fine? And if you send this 2 on ds to right hand side, what you get? Q by 2 epsilon 0 ds, that is what you get. But what is this Q? This Q is nothing but the charge that is present on the sheet of charge, which should be inside the Gaussian cylinder, which should be inside the Gaussian cylinder. I am erasing everything now. Okay, so this is the Gaussian cylinder, and the charge that is present inside this Gaussian cylinder will be the charge that is present on the area of ds, which is also present on the sheet of charge. Okay, so to make it clear, I have drawn the side view of the sheet of charge. So this is the system of charge that we are seeing from front. You see a cylinder, but if you see this entire diagram from side view, what you get, you will not be able to see cylinder here. You will not be able to see cylinder, rather you only can see a circle now. What is this circle? So this is the circle. Actually, whatever the cylinder that we are seeing here, from side what happens, it comes front. So if it comes front, you only can see the front circular surface of the cylinder. When you see the entire system from side, what happens, you can only see the circular surface of the cylinder. You will not be able to see the cylinder now. You only see a circle now. So that circle's area is taken as ds, so you know that. Okay, the same ds will be present even on the sheet of charge. Okay, and if the charge that is present on that ds is taken as q, now I can write sigma as q by ds. So that is what I am saying, and you can write q as sigma into ds, and if I cancel this ds, you get sigma by 2 epsilon 0. So this will be the electric field intensity due to a non-conducting infinite sheet of charge. So that you have to understand, and once it is clear, and I hope it is not a difficult one, but you need to be little careful while understanding the Gaussian cylinder, how it has to be, and what are the directions of E and ds at different points. That's it. And in our next topic, we try to find the electric field intensity due to an infinite conducting sheet of charge, which is also an important one. That's it. We'll stop here. Thank you, and thank you once again.